right then. Thank you for turning that recording on. I think that was probably Stephen. Welcome everyone to the Rec Innovation Lab, San Diego Miramar College. We also have with us students from San Diego State, some of the entrepreneurship and business students. So welcome everyone. We're so happy to have you. My name is Tanya Hertz. I am the founder and director of the Rec Innovation Lab at Miramar. We're a business incubator who with the express focus of helping people that were previously underserved in the entrepreneurship ecosystem get resources to start companies, to start high growth, high tech companies. And one of the reasons why I just am so grateful that I met the speaker, Michael Taylor, and got to know him is because he has a very similar passion and focus of increasing opportunities for diverse people who before just were not maybe as represented. And so I love the spotlight that he has on his KPBS theater corner. He profiles Black founders. He profiles again people that before were maybe not getting as much attention as they should. And so I love that. I love that we got to meet one another, and that he's able to share his really unique story and expertise with us today. So with that, I should let maybe Michael talk about himself instead of me just talking about him. But Michael, is there anything anything else that you wanted to add there? Or I'll let you actually introduce yourself. Take it away, Michael.
All right. Thank you so much, Tanya. Really happy to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to always, share with folks. I don't know if the word expert really applies, but I'm willing to share whatever I have. Perhaps maybe just a little bit about me really quickly. I actually attended and graduated from San Diego City College, where I majored in anthropology and focused on archaeology. Along with the associate's degree, I got a certificate in archaeology there at City College, and transferred there to Columbia University in the city of New York, where I continued focusing on anthropology and archaeology. And after I graduated from Columbia, at the age of 48, I started the company here, NWB Environmental, which is an archaeological consulting firm. And so here I am. And so what I'd like to talk about today is diversity certifications, supplier diversity certifications, which had a lot to do with starting the company and not having a great deal of experience as a company, even though the people had a lot of experience, the staff. The company itself didn't have a lot of experience, but
and Michael, oh sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there, but I just I did want to let you know that a lot of the people that are here with us today are brand new business founders, right? Some of them have not even yet launched their business, and so I told them that they had the opportunity to talk to somebody who's gone through this process and who's done this. And so if you could share with those new entrepreneurs some of the benefits that you had of
oh, certainly. I was thinking that we go through the topic and leave a little extra time at the end, actually, to bleed over into the discussion around entrepreneurship, because there's a lot to cover there.
Lot to cover.
And so let's we got the PowerPoint up, and so we're looking at maybe about 30% of this being supplier diversity certifications, and the rest, whatever questions about the certification. But it'd be great if you know, like 50–40% is on entrepreneurship. So if we start up, where is this the first one? So so the first thing is this slide number 2, Steve.
This is slide number 1 after the intro.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. So first of all, let's talk about diverse suppliers. So when we talk about suppliers, we're basically talking about companies like mine or yours. When you see the name supplier, so in the contract world, that's how people refer to companies as suppliers. And so, and then let's talk about what do we mean when we make this reference of diverse suppliers, and a lot of times that's minorities and women. You know, this is how we can sum that up, defining diverse suppliers. So that's women and minorities. That an important point in terms of the certifications is that those persons, that certification that the company would hold will be based on that person owning 51% or more of that company, owning and operating 51% or more of that company. And so, for example,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
When you apply for,
go ahead, Michael.
When you apply for a certification, these are one of the important things, probably almost number one, in the evaluation process when you're being verified for the certification, is whether that Black person or that Hispanic person or that Asian person or that female is 51% or more owner and actively involved in the running and managing of that company, or if it's based on economic disadvantage, that person is 51% or more owner and manager. Next slide. And so just I touched on a couple of them, but these are examples of when they allude to minority, these are some of the categories that they're referring to. You know, American Indian, Asian, Black, Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and ethnically described as Hispanic or Latino. These are categories of what makes up or defines a minority. Next slide. And so let's talk about some of the common certifying agencies that would actually that you would apply to, and that would actually issue the certification, the diversity certifications. And so, you know, and it's you know, all levels of municipality. Some agencies that do not issue certifications themselves, they will accept certifications from other certifying agents. And so, like, for example, one example I can give you is that, let's say the county of San Diego doesn't actually issue a diversity certification, but they will, like the one from Caltrans and Metropolitan Transportation, they will accept those certifications, which work just the same. And so these that I listed, and there are probably others, these are ones that I've actually applied to and received my diversity certifications from the Department of Veteran Affairs for bidding on federal contracts. CPUC, California Public Utility Commission, they have supplier clearinghouse, and so you can apply and receive a certification from that agency. the California Unified Certification Program, CUCP. You got Caltrans and MTA are two agencies you can apply to get the certification, the DBE certification from those agencies. The state level, Department of General Services, DGS, will issue a state level diversity certification. And another thing is each of these like federal, state, city level, mainly the certifications you get would apply to contracts you would be bidding on from those levels of municipality. For example, the CPUC, Supplier Clearinghouse, that certification is mainly recognized and used for bidding on contracts from any of the utility companies in California, for example. And then you in one of the lower municipalities, the city, they have their own small local business certification, where they give a little bit more attention or help to small local businesses, because if small local businesses in San Diego get contracts, for example, those monies are going to employees of that company, and those employees live in San Diego. And so that's ways to ensure that city government money can kind of stay in the city. And so that it sort of stays and enhances the economics of San Diego. Next slide. And here I've listed, this isn't all the possible certifications. I just listed these as the ones that my company holds. And so a couple of certifications you don't see there are like a woman-owned business enterprise is a certification. There's a LGBT certification with Supplier Clearinghouse. So I'm for the sake of this workshop, I just kind of listed the ones that I have, and in the agencies that I received them from. So they're the SBE certification, the Small Business Enterprise. This one is based on the financials for a company under a certain amount of annual revenue to qualify for the SBE certification. And so these are smaller companies. This certification sort of exists to kind of give them a little boost or a little edge on contract bidding, because they're going up against much larger corporations with more resources. So here's a little extra certification, and I'll show you towards the end how these certifications actually matter when you're actually pursuing contracts. I'll give you some very clear examples of how they work out if it's not clear already. And of course the MBE, kind of, it's obvious, a minority business enterprise. I'm a disabled veteran from the Marine Corps, so I have an actual disability rating from the VA, and so I qualify for the Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise certification. And that is a state certification. Now there's also a federal Disabled Veteran certification, which is completely different. And that's issued by Veteran Affairs. And this is a special one in that if there's veterans out there, if whatever your business is a service or products that the government would buy, one thing the Veterans Affairs does is they have set aside contracts to where companies with this specific certification they're set aside for only these type of companies that could bid on it. So the only competition would be another veteran-owned company, which reduces the competition and, sort of enhances your chances of winning a contract. And of course, the SLBE, Small Local Business Enterprise Certification, that's just it's one that is acknowledged by the city of San Diego. And again, I'll show you in a few minutes exactly how these certifications come into play. I'll give you some examples that my company was involved with and applying these certifications. Next slide. And so actually we're here already. So here's an example. So the page to the left, that's the cover sheet for an active RFP that's out right now by the city of San Diego. And this RFP is a request for proposal, request for bids for companies as needed environmental services. And so as an archaeological firm, my company would fall under the umbrella of environmental services. And so this is a very large contract with several disciplines that's needed. Everything from biological services, archaeological, paleo services, geological services, environmental compliance, all of these things. So one company wouldn't necessarily have all of those services under their roof. And so sort of the approach would be to team up with companies that offer the other services. But the other thing is to team up with companies that hold the Small Local Business Enterprise certification. And what the city does is they incentivize a large company that's going to be the prime contractor to team up with smaller companies that hold this certification, and there's actual incentive built into the bidding process that would, make it attractive to team with companies that are small, like my company. And so if you look at the page to the right, this is how the scoring system is broken down as part of the selection process. And once bids are submitted, this is a breakdown. Number one is experience, the method. Number two is method, strength of the key personnel. Number three, knowledge. But then if you go down, after those are totaled, you go down to number 5, and you'll see the participation by Small Local Business Enterprise certification and the emerging local business enterprise. What the city has put in place is giving the bidding prime contractor extra points, extra credits for bringing in a certified company, smaller certified company onto the team and committing to giving them a certain percentage of the work from the contract if they were to win as a team. And so so if the prime really wants to get an extra edge on attempting to win the contract, so certainly they would bring a smaller company like mine on board. They would get the extra points, which would potentially help them to win. And at the end, at the bottom there, you would see if they maxed out 100 points and then got 12 points for bringing a company like mine on board, they would, potentially get 112 points and, perhaps get closer to winning. The winner is selected by the total number of points. And so this is the example of how the advantage of being a small company and having that diversity certification for the local San Diego. So next I'll give you an example of how that works out with the CPUC Supplier Clearinghouse certification. Next slide.
Can I just jump in and ask a question here, Michael?
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you sharing this. I think that it's going to be so useful for so many of our entrepreneurs here. what I'm wondering is, do you see that there could
I
be,
think
can you hear me all right? I was just going to say, can you see any
you
benefit
keep
for
going.
companies that are not in the, in contracting, or is there benefits to different kinds of companies, I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh, absolutely. And that goes back to what I said earlier. It just, one thing you can do based on the company that you started and the services or products that you offer, you can take a look at the city or the state or utility companies, for example, or the county, and kind of see what type of RFPs that they have out, and to see what type of services and products that these agencies actually purchase. You'd be surprised, especially the federal government.
Right.
Almost everything under the sun, they purchase, and so it's a matter of, I mean, you got to do some work on your own.
Yeah.
You got to do some research, and all the information is out there. I mean, even past awarded contracts
That's
are,
what I
are,
was,
are still out there. You can take a look and
that's what I was
see.
going to say. So you
you-
can look and see some people who've done this before and maybe connect with them. And
Oh yeah, you could do that, but it gives you an idea. I mean, you could see what the amount of the contract is, what what they bid it, what amount they bid it, and they won with that bid. I mean, this is all public information, So, but this is entrepreneurship. You gotta, there's a lot of work you gotta do. You gotta put in the time. You gotta research, and no one's gonna do it for you.
Right.
So, this is all part of the business owning process. But it is all out there, and maybe it takes a bit of effort. But if you're in college, it's kind of, being a student prepares you for stuff like this. I mean, you got to research for essays and things like that. So that's so you're already prepped and ready to go. So that brings us to CPUC supplier clearinghouse diversity certifications that are issued by this agency, and this is very specific to utility companies in California. In May of 1988, the CPUC issued General Order 156, basically outlining that electric, gas, and water and telecom companies, the large ones, practically all of them that are over 25 million in annual procurement. And procurement is basically the money they spend on products and services. They set in 1988 basically a total goal of 20%, 5% women owned, 15% minority owned. These are the goals that were set by the CPUC, that the utility companies had to this level of spend for diversity certified companies. And later they came out with 1.5% for disabled veteran companies. And they also acknowledge LGBT owned companies. They don't have a set goal for them, but this is another certification, and it still works the same way. They just don't have a formal annual goal. Second slide, or next slide. Just for optical purposes, this is what a diversity certification would look like. That this is the one that was issued to my company by Supplier Clearinghouse. This one is for minority business enterprise, for basically being a minority business owner. Next slide. So here's an example. So I took this is a sample contract. This is a page out of a contract, and it's basically outlining the obligations of a prime contractor. So earlier I mentioned one way to get started when you're small is to team with a larger company, because the way it works, when a large corporation is bidding on a contract, and I'm using environmental services as an example, they're incentivized to team up with a company that has a diversity certification. In this case, the one from the supplier clearinghouse. And so what they do to ensure that they reach their annual goal that the CPUC requires of them, and in this case, I'm talking about the SDG&E, just so that we understand. In this example, I'm talking about one of the companies that we do most of our work for is SDG&E here in San Diego. And so SDG&E has an annual goal of 20%. 20% of all the money that they spend on products and services, 20% they're required to go to diversity certified companies. Now, what's happening over the years from 1988 is that there's been a little bit of competition in between the utility companies, PG&E, Southern California Gas, SDG&E, and the other utilities, Verizon, and that each one every year one is trying to one up the other, see who can actually do more diversity spend. And so what's happened over time is that now SDG&E, they're up to, I think, like 44%. I think the last year that they reported on, 44% of their total annual spend on products and services have gone to companies that hold diversity certifications. So now I'm gonna go back to this example in this contract. So let's say this contract, it's an environmental contract, and in order for a large corporation to even bid on this contract, they have got to commit to, as you can see under number 1, where it says subcontracting goal, the company is required to reach their own goal of 40%. 40% of the contract spend for that contract, they would be obligated to pass that down to a subcontractors that have the diversity certification. And that's a hefty goal. But what that does is it's win-win for everyone. It's the prime contractor that's trying to get this contract. By agreeing to do that, that enhances his chance to win the contract. The smaller companies that hold the diversity certification, like mine, it enhances their chance of getting in on a contract with SDG&E because they hold that certification. And of course, they're able to do the work as well. It's not all about the certification. They can demonstrate that they're able to do the work or supply the products. And so this is an active look into how the diversity certification is applied in real time. And next slide. And this is just that paragraph that I was referring to in the contract. I just kind of made it larger so you could see the actual wording that the company is committed to reaching a goal of at least 40% of the contract money going to a diversity certified company. Next slide. And so what you're looking at, as you see the left page, this is the annual report, annual diversity report that SDG&E puts out at the end of every year. And what they do is outline all the money, what percentage and all the money they spent that went to companies with the diversity certifications. And this is the actual report from 2019. And they're required to submit these reports to the CPUC. And it becomes public knowledge, public information. So now if we look at the page to the right, you can see from 2015 up to 2019 what the spend is. And let me clarify what the numbers you're looking at. So if you look at the green strip at the top of the page for 2019, $635.7 million went to companies that have diversity certifications for SDG&E, doing work and products for SDG&E for the year 2019. And above that green strip, you see 40.9%. So what that means is of all the money that they spent on products and services, 635 million represents 40% of that total amount. So if you do the math, you're talking about over $1 billion spent on products and services. And 40% of that huge amount of money went to companies that have a diversity certification. And it goes, if you look further down on the page, it further breaks down how that money was spent. And so 447 million went to the prime contractors that had diversity certifications. 188 million went to the subcontractors that had diversity certifications. Again, diversity certifications, it can be woman-owned, minority-owned, disabled veteran-owned, LGBT-owned, any of those types of certifications. And so you go down to category highlights just below the center of the page, and then there's further breakdown based on certifications: minority, woman-owned, minority women, disabled veterans. I mean, just the disabled veteran-owned businesses alone received $73 million in contract spend from SDG&E. And so they really champion the whole giving diverse companies, disadvantaged companies, an opportunity to grow their businesses here in San Diego County. It's really a beautiful thing. Next slide. And basically, this is I've just basically took a part out of that page I was describing, to which amounts of money went to which types of diversity certified companies. So imagine, and with all of these certifications, so imagine if you were a minority woman who just happened to be a disabled veteran. You're basically covering all the possible certifications available. And so that's a powerhouse of, an extra boost and starting off in the business world. Next slide.
Real quick, Anastasia, do you have a question?
I do, yes. Thank you for calling on me. Michael, I had a question. I'm not sure if you went over this already and I just missed it. But when you talk about the certifying agencies, do we go to each individual agency and get these certifications? Like, do we go to the website? So the CPUC, for example, if I go to that website, is there a section that says certifications? And then I can just click that and apply to be certified as a minority-owned business?
Yes, the answer is exactly that. You hit it right on. This is the last slide for the PowerPoint. We can switch it off. You're right on that, and there's not necessarily some manual or something that you can read and get. You like, for myself, I just had to figure it out, through
Okay.
networking, but you do go to the individual agencies and everything is done online.
Okay, I quickly scanned the CPUC's website while you were talking, and I didn't see an area for it. Do you have direct links to where we would go to in order to apply for these certifications?
Yes.
Or is there a database for that?
Yeah, but you would be going to Supplier Clearinghouse website as
Oh, I
opposed to
see.
CPUC.
I see.
And
Okay.
and I'd be surprised if even CPUC doesn't have a diversity link on their website, but it would actually be
I didn't see
Supplier
that.
Clearinghouse.
And I'll share
Okay.
that. I'll share the link to that in the chat here.
Okay.
And so that particular certification, we can turn the PowerPoint off, but that particular certification applies to all of the utility companies in the state of California.
Okay. So that would go over, like you said, SDGE, PG&E, all
Yep.
of those. Okay.
Verizon Wireless, and we're also talking about, Cox Cable,
Mhm.
all of these are Google. I mean, they're now a local utility company. They have fiber lines in the state of California.
Mhm.
And all of these companies, they purchase products and services.
Can I ask another follow-up question? If
Absolutely.
So I was also hearing that you said as a small company, so I have a small organization, and you were recommending partnering with a larger company, and this is a recommendation we were given in the past when we were applying for city contracts. And do you have any recommendations on partnering and communicating the partnership and negotiating the payout from that as well, and how that actually works in real life? Because
Yes.
we are
So-
so small, and
Yeah.
I don't want to go in with like a small org mindset and then not get what we're putting into a contract as well.
Yeah. And so, I mean, keep in mind, and in those situations, they need you as much as you need them. And so this is where the networking as a business owner and building relationships come into play. And I cannot emphasize more of relationship building and network. I mean, that is everything. That is everything. So a couple of things that could happen, like when a contract, not a contract, but an RFP, for example, is released, let's say for the city, a lot of times they will have like a pre-bid, a mandatory pre-bid meeting. And so, and part of the reason they do that is for that very reason. So potential primes and potential subcontractors can be in one space, and you're on your own to network and meet those primes, and to, in an effort to start a relationship and network and talk about the possibility of teaming together. And they usually everyone signs in, and so they also send the sign-in sheet out to everyone, so everyone has everyone's contact information, and you can just go down the list and to the potential primes and contact them individually. And so,
Okay.
this is one way, but it just kind of depends on what industry you're in. Environmental services, I mean, it's clear. I mean, it's clear for my industry. I know who the large prime contractors are, AECOM and companies like that are usually looking to be the prime contract. I can contact them and work from there. But over time, I've just kind of known people that work for that company, and you just just networking, you just kind of, you work your way, and it's work, and it's and that kind of speaks to just what it is to be in this entrepreneurial arena. I mean, it's absolute work. I mean, it's work for yourself, but I would discourage anyone from starting a business if you're not willing to be up to 11 and 12 o'clock at night sitting behind your desk, this kind of effort into building your company. One is just not cut out for this and should consider something else, because it's just downright work. I mean, it's a lot of effort, you know,
Yeah,
and
I
a
hear you.
lot of the stuff requires initiative, self-discipline. I mean, you gotta go out and find things and figure things out on your own.
Mhm.
I mean, we're talking about pursuit of contracts, what we're talking about here. But I mean, there's so many administrative things, you know, just keeping up with the labor commission and your taxes and
Mhm.
and bookkeeping. I mean, there's a lot of hats, you know,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. I
and you
totally agree.
and it just requires time, and it's working on the weekends. I always talk about, you know, people celebrate about it's Friday. You know, as an entrepreneur, you looking at 7-day block of time.
Mhm.
That's what a week looks like. There's
I-
and you have to kind of go in it with this attitude. It's 7-day block of time, and that's just what it is. You know, there's no getting off at 5 o'clock. You know, it's just not. And
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
miss
I
Fridays.
agree. And I also have another take on that, just generally, like outside of this discussion. I totally agree on some levels, but I'm also working my organization to create a different mindset around the way we interact with work. So it's kind of interesting that you're going into this a little bit. And I don't want to take up too much more time if other people have questions, but I appreciate you sharing a bit more and answering my questions. And I actually would like to continue communicating with you if possible outside of this, because doing this contracting work and networking around it has been something that I'm still learning and growing in. And it's something that if you wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind reaching out to you if I had any other questions, just networking wise, or like the ins and outs of things, because it's confusing. It can be kind of confusing.
yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
It could be confusing, intimidating, all that things. But you gotta,
Mhm.
I mean, if you're, no, it's, yeah, you just gotta jump in there. But I'd certainly make myself available. Absolutely,
I can
make
connect you.
myself available for a
Thank
conversation.
you.
You know, outside of this forum. Um, uh, yeah, absolutely. I don't know
Thank you.
how.
I was gonna say,
I guess
Michael, I
through
can,
Tanya, you can
yeah, I was
get
gonna say I can
my,
connect. I can
Mhm.
connect you too.
yeah,
Thank you,
get
Tanya.
my contact information.
Of course.
A- another thing about work, you know, sometimes how work is looked at is kind of a cultural thing.
Isn't that
You
the
know,
truth?
Absolutely.
United States culture,
Absolutely.
you know, I don't know where it came from or why it's like that, but sometimes there's this negative connotation around working hard.
Mhm.
And
No,
where other countries,
right.
you know, it doesn't, this kind of thing doesn't exist.
Hmm.
You
Mhm.
know, you
It's like you're
work and
not,
you work hard,
yeah, it's
you
like
know.
it's like if you're successful, you're supposed to be like, oh, I have a white collar job, so I don't work hard. I sit back and just let everybody else do it. Yeah, right.
You know,
Yeah, right.
oh,
Whoa, whoa,
absolutely.
whoa, whoa, wait, hang on. Work hard came from hundreds of years ago when you were out in the field versus now.
Working.
That's right, real work. So and then they looked at people like professionals and said, those guys don't really
Yeah,
work. They
really,
don't know.
really.
I grew up in that environment. So yeah, I know it. But I'm just saying, be careful of that because it
Oh,
kind
no.
of changed a little bit.
Well, you know, this stuff that's built into American culture, like, oh, it's Monday, you know, like what's it?
Mhm.
I mean, you know, this kind of attitude, that's just some kind of organic part of being an American, you know. Thank God it's Fridays. I mean, you know, as if, you know, you're trying to escape from, you know,
Right.
what work is to get to something else,
Something else. Right.
as if work is something bad or
Bad.
negative
Yeah.
or something that,
Right.
yeah.
But
I
I
agree. I
guarantee
agree.
you this, Michael. Everybody on this call wakes up every morning wanting to do this job.
Yeah. Those are
Okay.
those
And that
entrepreneurs.
that
Yeah.
is a huge difference than, outside of our little bubble right
Oh,
now.
certainly.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, the true entrepreneurs with the true entrepreneurial spirit, I think, you know, they're in it. You know, they're in it, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's you know, not everyone's an entrepreneur, and they work. You know, some people are working in jobs that they don't necessarily even like. You know, it's just they're trading time for money, and because they have to out of
Right.
necessity. But
Mhm.
you know, a lot of times, I guess, you know, the entrepreneurs they're pursuing, you know, their passion. You know, what
Right.
they're
What we love.
really into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I see we have a couple other questions. Does Oh, actually, I take that back. I take that back in the chat. Does anybody have any questions directly for Michael? We have just a little bit of
I
time.
have a quick question,
go ahead.
Michael. Some of the students have asked me if I can share your slides with them. Is that okay with you?
Certainly. Yeah. That's
Okay, got it.
and it's
Thank
just-
you.
That's nice. Yeah, wonderful. All right. Other questions? I see Billy has a question.
Yeah, the only other thing is I was wondering about fees for certification.
You're wondering about, I'm sorry, what was that?
The cost of certificate. Go ahead, Billy. Sorry.
That's okay. Are there fees for these certifications?
Oh yeah, the fees are huge. It's called time.
Oh, you
It's
scared
really
me for a
expensive.
second.
No, actually, there's no, these agencies don't charge for the certifications, but I mean, there's a great deal of paperwork they're going to expect you to submit, like your, probably, like business license, your tax, your EIN paperwork, depending on how long you've been in business, your tax returns, your business tax returns, your personal tax returns. There's a bit. So it requires a little bit of time. I would also recommend, if you're just starting the company, let's say you started your company yesterday, I would not wait. I would not hesitate, even if you haven't even figured out how to use the certifications. I would apply for the certifications right off, because here's the thing. If you're a brand new company, you can still receive the certification, but you don't even have documents. You don't have past
Nothing
tax-
against you.
tax returns. So there's less documents that you have to gather together, and you're still getting the same certification. And most of them, when they're issued, they last for 3 years at a time before you have to renew them, something like that.
Oh, nice.
And so the less documents that you have to submit, the better,
Absolutely.
and I did that with a couple of the certifications, and one that I waited a few years before I got the federal disabled veteran certification. And I was digging up a lot of documents. In the first one, I barely had to submit anything. So that's something to consider.
I never thought of that. That's really great advice, Michael. Yeah, just you have this limited window of time before you have as many documents that you need to get together, just because they don't exist. So great advice there. Great advice there. And in answer to your question too, Billy, about the cost of certification, I've seen organizations and there's websites out there where you can see they'll charge you. Right, they'll charge you.
Oh, don't do that. Yeah. Don't do that. As a matter of fact, I would also recommend going to, what is it called, the SDCCD.
No, the SPDC. We actually the SPDC. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, the SPDC also helps with the certifications, and we have through the rec. We have. Next week, I believe, we have the director of the SPDC coming to talk to them about setting up meetings, and we purposely scheduled that after you came, so that they could learn about the certifications first before working with Sudarshan to get signed up for those.
They are one heck of a resource, and I don't mind going over the time if you guys want to continue talking. But they are an amazing resource, and it's all free. They're offering you services that these companies are trying to charge you for.
Yep. Totally
for the
free.
same, and it's just it's very informative. They have workshops, different business workshops. It was a while ago, but I've attended workshops there when I was first starting off.
So Michael, we actually work with the SPDC quite a bit, and they do some of their workshops through the rec. So it's so easy if you are here at Miramar. We even help schedule the appointments for you. You don't have to do like anything. So I say take advantage for sure. And those of you who have to leave, thank you for being here. We understand those who have to go, but I have a little extra time if you can stick around, Michael.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we can kick it. I can also comment about, if there are people who haven't actually started a business yet, you're trying to figure out what to do. I would have a comment about sort of like the structure, and that, there's cost in starting a business, but I would definitely consider like what my structure is a consulting company. That means we have expertise and in a certain discipline, which is archaeology, and we have the credentials for that. And so we're selling our consultation to clients.
Yeah.
So what does it take to start a company like that in terms of costs? So what are you talking about? A website, laptop, a telephone number, very minimal cost.
Right.
And what you're selling is a service, professional services. So that's something to consider, as opposed to sometimes a retail store, perhaps buying wholesale, selling retail. Having getting an office or getting a retail space. I mean, with consulting starting off, I mean, I didn't even have an office. You had the staff, and we kind of met in a coffee house and went over whatever work, and people did it at home. It wasn't. It's not necessary when you're selling. Not depending on the professional services, that's not necessary. So in terms of overall cost, general cost of getting started, these are two things to consider. You're not necessarily having to pursue some business loan in consulting to get started, which is a huge cost. So if you could start off with minimal debt or no debt at all, and just once you get an opportunity or a contract and you have employees, now you're just trying to figure out how to carry the payroll until you start getting checks on your contract. And that would be the cost. That would be the cost. Insurance, and the biggest cost, insurance and carrying payroll. But once you're in there and receiving invoice checks, and then you're rolling it back in, and now you're off and running. Any other comments or questions or
comments? Yeah, I was
and there are also industry groups, like for me, there's an association of environmental professionals that one can join. So depending on whatever industry or discipline that you might be looking at, there's typically some type of professional group to join. And those are really great. They usually have annual conferences and workshops and meetings, and like the one I just mentioned, for example, for environmental professionals, they have discounts and for insurance, for business insurance. You got to have liability insurance and things like that, but they have that specific for that industry, but it's through that professional group.
Right. So, I actually was going to say here, I'm going to stop the recording. And well, before I stop the recording, thank you so much, Michael, for all of that advice. So helpful. Appreciate it. I can't thank you enough. But I will